And now for our top story at 1 p.m. While the center battles the deepfake menace, a government advisory has been issued to ensure that social media platforms comply with IT rules. The advisory states that prohibited content and subsequent penal provisions under the IT Act of 2000 and the IPC must be communicated clearly in the terms of service and the user agreement of a social media platform. Beyond this, one other key point in the advisory states that platforms and intermediaries are under obligation to report violations of law. Now remember, this actually comes in the backdrop of doctored videos of Rashmika Mandana, Kajol and Katrina Kaif doing the rounds on social media, and also reports of deepfakes being used to extort money from vulnerable people.
Well, absolutely. See, from the government point of view, they are very much serious about the deepfake issue, and it's a growing concern for the government as well. And that is the reason we had seen that in the last month itself, for 2 consecutive days, the IT ministry was having marathon meeting with all social media platforms regarding the rules and regulations. Now, in the latest advisory that has been issued from the IT ministry, they have clearly told all the social media platforms that they have to comply with the IT rules no matter what. And secondly, they have told all the social media platforms to notify the users about the caution content, as well as to make sure that if the users are violating the rules of IT, then they must be aware of the legal action as well. Now, they have directed the social media platforms that if they detect such deepfake video from any sort of user, then they must immediately act, and it is the responsibility of the social media platforms to inform the law enforcement in the country.
All right, now I would like to welcome our guest to the broadcast. We have Mr. Kazim Rizvi joining us. He is the founding director of The Dialogue. Mr. Rizvi, thank you so much for speaking to us here at Mirror. Now, what we wanted to ask you about, considering that the center has now released a list of guidelines for social media platforms to comply with, also reiterating that it's important for social platforms to essentially already comply with existing IT rules. What I wanted to ask you about is, in the face of all the deepfakes that we've seen, how worried does society actually need to be as a whole, when it comes to deepfakes and other AI issues that we could potentially see?
I think it's definitely a big problem, and I think what the government has done is appropriate. If you may go back 2 years ago, we had the IT Rules 2021, within which there are 10 due diligence norms under Rule 31B, which the social media platforms have to comply with. And they have to take reasonable efforts to make sure that they inform the user and make sure that the list of those 10 content which have been mentioned in the rules, for example, obscene pornographic content or content which is harmful to child or which infringes on patent, trademark, or communicates misinformation, etc., is it's sort of taken down, etc. And the reasonable efforts have to be taken by the platforms. The advisory comes in light of the rules itself, where the government is reinforcing the need for platforms to communicate this to the user and make it aware to the user that they should not be posting or disseminating these types of content. And deepfakes can be included within the bracket of misinformation or privacy breach. And that's what the government has done with this advisory. It's a big issue. Definitely, the right steps are being taken. But I think what we also need is to sort of go forward and look at ways where we can build a consensus in terms of how do we actively take steps. I mean, there are technological solutions when it comes to detecting deepfakes, when it comes to identifying deepfakes. I think those solutions have to be included and developed, and it's already being done. But we need to sort of move a little fast on these aspects. We can look at digital watermarking. We can look at blockchain for verification, forensic analysis. So there are technical tools available which the industry can sort of look at when it comes to identifying and subsequently, taking down these deepfakes, which are, of course, harmful to the society as a whole.
All right, Mr. Rizvi, thank you so much for telling us about that. I also would like to request that you stay with us. We also want to welcome another guest to the broadcast. We have Mr. Pradeep Mahor, who is a BJP leader. Mr. Mahor, thank you so much for joining us and speaking to us here at Mera Now. What I wanted to ask you about is how worried is the center about this deepfake menace? Is there a plan to bring a larger law into place? And if so, how quickly could we see that happen?
Look, it is definitely big setback. It can be a big setback for our ethical or even the frameworks that we have developed. So that is the reason the government has issued two advisories. In first advisory was about detection, preventing, spotifying, and reporting measures, and definitely spreading awareness. And second advisory was on AI generated content should be tagged, right? So that this advisory had been issued to the companies, intermediaries, so that they can tag the content and identify it, so that everybody can know that this is the content. Has been generated by AI, and definitely, if somebody reports, it should be removed within 24 hours. And basic thing that we have to do is spread awareness about it, because if somebody has created my fake AI, first person to report should be me, because it becomes very difficult for the companies also to identify the content that is there on their social media, whether it is real content or it is a fake content, fake kind of a content. So complete awareness as well as the infrastructure is required. Technology is the answer for the technology. Definitely, there will be in future. There is going to be a technology where these kind of fakes will be identified. AI will be helping and identify AI fakes. So that will be in the future, because if some threat arises, technology itself comes up with the solution for the threats. But till then, we are the people, we are the humans. Humans can definitely identify those fakes and report them as early as possible, so that they can be removed by the social media intermediary companies.
Absolutely. Mr. Mahor, very interesting points that you bring out there. Bouncing off of something that you said, I now want to bring our next question to our guest, Mr. Rizvi, who remains with us on the broadcast. Mr. Rizvi, how difficult is it actually to monitor content on the internet?
So it's definitely not easy when it comes to monitoring deep fakes, right? And then identifying deep fakes in real time. So definitely we need, stronger tech solutions when it comes to this. I think there are two parts to this. Number one is that as soon as platforms, become aware, or if there is a complaint coming to them, or if there's a government order which is going to them, there is a mandated timeline within which they have to, take down content. And that's one part. But the other part is also the user awareness part, which the advisory addresses, is that the users themselves should not indulge in proliferation or distribution of such content as soon as they come to the notice. So I think that's the aspect when it comes to bringing the users into the discourse as well is critical. When it comes to identifying deepfakes particularly, I think what we need some sort of collaboration between the industry and the government to identify and ways to sort of build this up. As I said previously, we can look at open source collaborations. We can look at different partnerships. There are ways when it comes to forensic analysis that you can identify deepfakes. Once you've identified deepfakes, how do you categorize them? How do you mark them? So there could be some way to digitally watermark deepfakes as they are spread across the internet, so that users are aware that, look, this is a harmful deepfake, so don't spread it further. We can also look at advanced machine learning models. And my fellow panelists spoke about AI. So I think because this is synthetic digital media generated through the use of artificial intelligence, you need solutions which will also come from AI-based technologies. I think that's what we'll have to look at when it comes to really identifying deepfake. But there are certain things which are critical. There are visual artifacts which is very clear when it comes to what is a deepfake, what is a not. There are audiovisual mismatches So there is another way to sort of look at, okay, this is a deepfake or not. Then you have deep learning based detection methods, which can be deployed by the platforms to identify deepfakes, and also multi-model assembly methods. So there is technology available. There is machine learning based detection as well. You look at the conventional neural networks, you look at the transfer learning modules, etc. So technology exists right now to detect these deepfakes, but I think the challenge lies in the volume, because it's so large in volume, and I think the spread is so fast, it becomes viral quickly across social media platforms, which is where the role of users
Absolutely.
becomes critical. Because once the deepfakes is identified and tagged, it should not spread too far across multiple handles. So I think that's where the advisory to raise awareness is important. And if you see IT Rules 2021, the government talks about the fact that the platforms need to communicate to the users not to spread or not to publish harmful content, and they should also periodically remind the users, right? So what the government has done is they are
Absolutely.
reinforcing
Mr.
this
Rizvi,
in
thank you
yes.
so much for joining us for this discussion. We've really valued your viewpoints here on this show. I'd also like to thank Mr. Mahor. Unfortunately, we do have to cut this a little short.